Video, I will explain you about the Jainism and Buddhism. When we talk in terms of the syllabus, we will only go with the cause for the rise in the 6th century about the Jainism and Buddhism and its doctrines. We will not go for the sources and the spread. As per according to the new syllabus of the ICC, we will go only for the cause for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. So, what's given in your book? We should go around the background, what happened, and why this Jainism and Buddhism became very much popular in our country in Indian background. That we will study. So, in the 6th century BC, the Aryan settlement expanded. Expanded, you understand? They started expanding means they earlier they were only restricted to the Indus region. Now to the Yamuna, the Ganga region. So this was the expansion. Now they were moving with the use of the iron to the east, accompanied by rapid socio-economic and political changes. So accompanied here means as they were expanding, as they were moving beyond their restricted area, now they were moving to the eastern part. So as they were growing, as they were moving, so there was also the growth in their pattern of living, socio-economic. That means their standard of living, their uses, what are the things earlier they were using, now there was a change in that, and the political changes. So now they were earlier they were living in the small tribes, now they were in the big janpads, in a big rajas, and in that manner. Society at some places had traits of tribal political organization, while at some other places kingdoms were on the rise. So both the things we can notice. In some of the places still the tribal people were living, the Aryans were living in the small tribe, having the leaders, and in the some of the area this tribal has changed into the big kingdoms. And this is what given, and materialism and spiritualism both existed side by side. So when this was going on, the change when it was happening during the 6th century BC, so there was also materialism. So materialism means the people were using different aspect of materials with the metals, not only the gold, silver and other. So they were using iron, the other kind of the things required for their daily uses. So that is what they were using it for their life, to make the life easy, plus spiritualism. So beside that, in the last Vedic we have seen how the people had they have their own aspect with the system, how they have divided the stages with each 25 years, first 25 in the Gurukul, then the marriage life, and then the sannyas and other things. So this is what given here. So beside that was a spiritualism also, the people had belief in the god also. Now there was a change in the god, belief in the god. So the people in the later Vedic age began to use implement as and tools made of iron. So we have studied last how iron became very much in use. The iron tool enabled them to clear forests. So this tool helped a lot. It made a revolution because it helped in cleaning it, making the tall trees to cut down and use that land for the agriculture. So bring more land under cultivation and lead a settled life. As a result, there was a surplus production of food grain. So obviously when they will work, there will be, if they plant more, so there will be surplus production, and that surplus production can be rotated and the economic perspective will increase, will improve. So this happened. This surplus produce could be utilized by the kings to meet their military and administrative need. Of course, when there will be good amount of money, so that money will be used for the defensive protective purpose, and for that they need to make more weapons, so more iron tools. So that money was being used for the military and the administrative needs. It could also be used by the people in the town who specialize in various arts and craft. All these advantages enable the people to lead a settled life and to expand further in the neighboring area. So all these were the good features which helped them to expand more far and wide, having such a strong in terms of military and other things. Now this expansion resulted in wars between the different tribes. So obviously there was, in order to dominate each other, there were fights one upon the other. The tribes used to fight. The kingdom had they were involved in the wars. In these wars, the larger and more powerful tribe defeated the smaller one and expanded their territory and created. So expanded their territory means they increased their kingdom wise area. So that is what given here. Now these kingdoms were called janpads. Now these kingdoms were known as janpad. A number of janpads joined together to form a bigger and more powerful independent kingdom called Mahajanpad. So when these tribal were involved in battle, and when they lost the battle, so these small janpads got joined to the one who were the victorious one, and then together they were called what? Mahajanpad. The 6th century BC is regarded as an important epoch in the world history, which saw the emergence of thinker like Zarathustra or the Zoroastrian Persia. So this is the thinker, you can say, as they were the philosophical thinkers, those who came with their views. So this Zoroaster was famous in Persia, which was known as Zarathustra or the Zoroaster in Persia, Confucius in China, and Mahavira and Gautam Buddha among many other in India. So in India, it was the period when orthodox religious belief and practices were challenged and even rejected by the new sect. Now orthodox religious, we mean to say that very fixed and the rigid belief in the religion. So that time the early Vedic and then the later Vedic, the system of belief was very rigid. So there was no flexibility in that, no changes were done. Of these sects, Jainism and Buddhism emerged as the most potent religious form of the movement. So that is what, in this situation, Jainism and Buddhism was a remarkable way to, it was for a common people to come out of this kind of a rigid system where the people were troubled with the things. Now I would like to explain you about the causes for the rise of the Jainism and Buddhism, which is given in your syllabus. So first of all, we should discuss the reaction against the ritualism. So number one is what? Your religious ceremonies by then had become very expensive. Expensive means the sacrifices of animals, without that the yajna was not said to be successful. So this is what here the people perform the expensive sacrifices, which were very much expensive, and the people had to spend lots of money over there. But the common people had not enough money to spend every time for those yajna and the pujas. So this is what given here. Religious ceremonies by then had become very expensive, beyond the means of ordinary people. So beyond the means means ordinary people cannot afford to that much level of money to be spent for the pujas or the rituals. So some priests hardly realize the suffering of the common man. So the priest, the Brahminical class, though, from, as when you will notice, from the birth of a baby to the grave, the cradle to the grave, everywhere the priest is required for every function. When the child takes a birth, that time is also needed, the Brahmin and the priest is needed, and when the person dies with a dead body, that time also the priest is needed. So this is how the system was made, where these priestly class were required, urgently required. We cannot skip off. So now it was very difficult for common man to survive with all those rituals. So this was an important cause for the gave rise to the faith were simple and inexpensive. And so this Jainism and Buddhism, it was very so simple, which could be followed by any kind of group of people. Number two is corruption in religion. Corruption crept into religious practices. In order to extract money, the priests encouraged ordinary people to perform yajnas and conduct household rites beyond their means. So now again the corruption is there with the Brahminical class, the priestly class. They wanted to get the money. In order to get the money, and this money was with the common people, the Vaishya class people, those who are working people. Now to get the money, how can they get it? So that can be only done with the help of pujas. So with the puja, with the sacrifice, they will give some donation, dan, dakshina. So this is what called here. So they made certain rule regulation for the pujas to perform, and in that manner they can get the money. So Kshatriya ruler protested against the dominance of such practices. So some rulers, though they had some gut, they came forward and they protested. The common man could not reconcile to this attitude of the priest. Both Jainism and Buddhism were found by the two Kshatriya princes. And one thing we should always remember, that Buddhism was of course patronized by the Ashoka, and the Jainism were also patronized by some of the Kshatriya rulers. So when they came forward, then only the things came in control. Otherwise it was very difficult. People, the common people, were in a very kind of they had a grievances with the things, the ritual practices. They can't go for it now and then every time. So this was there. So now third is your rigid caste system. The division of society into Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra had become rigid. Rigid means there was no mobility. A person belonging to Shudra cannot become a Vaishya, Vaishya cannot become a Brahmin. So those who have got the birth in that particular class, so they will die with that identification. Their identification will not change. So it did not allow any social mobility. A person of one caste could not become a member of the other caste even after the certain changes in the system like marriage. Then also the person will not be called by that other intercaste. So there were restriction on the basis of caste. So when this was also very important, because if they are restricted, if certain caste is restriction, so they were not allowed to have certain food, drink and marriage. So this is what there is a differences in the caste. This is a bias with the caste. They were not allowed to consume these certain things because of the class or the caste. Since they belong to Shudra, they cannot eat this, or they cannot drink, they cannot participate in whatever. So there were so many do and don'ts with them. Now interchange of caste was impossible, and there was no question. There was not at all to be thought also that one person who belonged to Shudra can think of being Brahmin. It was not at all possible. Next point is your difficult language. Sanskrit was obviously right from the Rig Vedic, every mantra, everything is written and composed, recited, everything is done in the Sanskrit. So it was a difficult language because the common people had no idea recitation to chant the mantras. So that was a difficult point also. Sanskrit was considered a sacred language, sacred here, the pure language, the holy language. Most of the Vedic literature was composed in Sanskrit. So we have seen earlier the priestly class gave discourse and chanted mantras in this language, which the common people found difficult to understand. So all those mantras, when it was recited or chanted, it was not only difficult to pronounce but to understand also. Therefore, many people began to look for an alternative religion and they could understand better. So they wanted another way of to know about it, what is given in the Veda. So they wanted a simple language, and that was also another option for Jainism and Buddhism. Then the political situation in the 6th century BC, Magad was ruled by Bimbisar and later by Ajatashatru. So we have taught you about the Mauryan Empire, how it was expanding. The Magad rule was there. So this is what here, both these rulers were liberal and tolerant. So they allowed the other religion to exist. So whomever the king had a patron god like Shiva or Vishnu, but they allowed other religion also to exist in their kingdom. They too were free from Brahminic influence and condemned certain social evils in their kingdom. When the opportunity came, they patronized both Jainism and Buddhism. So these rulers understood the situation. They allowed other religion to coexist, and if when the time needed, they spoke for it, they came forward it, they patronized also. Then the next point is your agricultural economy. Killing of animals to perform sacrifices was against the interest of farmers in the Gangetic Valley. So it was very difficult since the animals were being sacrificed. It was a loss of the animals. The use of iron had made the animal drawn plowing popular. So with the coming of iron, the oxen were used in the field for the plowing for agriculture purpose, and when the animal were being sacrificed, that was a great damage for the agriculture. Such farmers needed a religion that would give protection to animals. Both Jainism and Buddhism preached non-violence and were against animal sacrifice. This is how the Jainism and Buddhism, they did not patronize for killing of animal or slaughter of the animal. So this is what the spread of the Jainism and Buddhism. Now I will specifically talk about the Jainism. What is Jainism and what you have to study about it. So the doctrines of the Jains were praised by saints or acharyas called the Tirthankaras. So Tirthankaras were those people, those acharyas, those Jains people. So the term has been used for these Jain Acharya Tirthankaras. 23 Tirthankaras preceded Mahavira. The first Tirthankara was Rishabhadeva and the 23rd was Parshavnath. So you need to remember the first Tirthankara was Rishabhadeva who started it, and the 23rd was your Parshavnath. 24th, the Mahavir was the 24th Tirthankara, and he made the Jainism very popular, and that is why he is sometime also known as a founder. Mahavir was the 24th and the last of the Tirthankara. He made Jainism popular and systematic. Systematic means with the system. That is why Mahavira is considered as the founder of Jainism. Now when you go for the Mahavira, just as a knowledge, you must go with the book or with the paragraph you just read out. Mahavira was born in Kundagram near Vaishali in Bihar. So he was the child of Bihar, and he has been grown in the Vaishali and in the second half of the 6th century BC. His father was the chief of Kshatriya clan, and the mother Trishala belonged to the royal family of Licchavi. This is the name of the tribal Licchavi. So Licchavi, and the mother belonged to this tribe. Mahavira received his early education in all specialized branches. He is said to have been brave and to have saved his colleagues from danger. So as he was a child of a famous person of those areas, so he was also obviously he was trained and guided and skilled. For these deeds bravery he was called Mahavira, since he had saved his friends from many times from the dangers, and that is why this term Mahavir was given to him. At the time of his birth, his father's kingdom was prosperous, so the boy was called Vardhaman, prosperity. So why this Vardhaman is also given? Because when he took birth, so that time the prosperity could be seen in the family, in the kingdom, and that is why Vardhaman was given. He got absorbed in spiritual pursuit from early childhood. He was married to Yashoda. This was done in order to divert his attention from asceticism. So asceticism is his belief in the God and the spiritualism, to live a sannyasi life, so not to have a family life, not to have a materialistic life. So in order to draw his attention towards family and having a family, the father got him married. At the age of 30, after the death of his parent, Mahavir renounced the world. Renounce means he just left the family or the family life and roamed about as an ascetic, practicing severe penance. Penance is a hardship. Okay, so without those luxurious, those comfort life, he just moved on. He silently endured all the hardship. At last he obtained the supreme knowledge. He subdued his desire and became Jina, or the conqueror. Jina is the conqueror, that means the person who get the victory. His follower came to be known as Jinas or a Jains, that is who have conquered their desire. So when one control their desire, this is what called the conqueror or the victorious. Now, preaching of Mahavira. After becoming Jina, Mahavira spent his life in preaching. He gave his first sermon, first religious or whatever he got as an enlightenment. He first the message that he has given, that is what his first sermon, at Mount Vipul, situated in Rajgir, the capital of Magad. He was now a Kevalin, all-knowing, or the Lord Mahavira. He had a large number of followers. He preached at various centers like Avanti, Kosla, Anga, Mithila, Champa, Videha, or Vaishali. These are all important names of those period. Lord Mahavira attained salvation at the age of 72 at Pavapuri in Bihar. At the time of his death, he had about 14,000 followers. This is all about the life history of Mahavira. Main, you have to study about the teaching. The doctrine is important part, which I will explain you right now. Main teaching of Jainism. Jainism did not accept the authority of the Vedas. So of course, some of the areas when the Mahavir found it that these are the man-made, these rituals are not so important, so they condemned it. Jainism preaches 5 vows. It is said that only the 5th vow was added by Mahavira. So when we go through, there are 5 vows and the 5th is said to be added by Mahavir. The 5 vows: a Jain householder, a person who believe in the Jain Mahavir, that is the belief of the Jainism. So he has to follow the 5 thing in their life. Ahimsa, that is non-violence. Then your Acharya or Asteya, that is not stealing, so they should not have that concept of stealing and living a life. Then Satya, not telling a lie. Satya means the truth of a life. So this is what here. Then Apragriha, not possessing a property. Property means if you will have the property, you will earn more and more, so that if you will not have only, you will not worry about. This is what here given. Then Brahmacharya, practicing chastity. Brahmacharya, that means a full, complete the life, your complete devotion to God. Such kind of a pure life you need to spend. So non-injury to living beings, especially to human, animal, plant and insect, is important in Jain philosophy. So the Jainism not only teach that non-violence should not only be practiced with the human being, but also with the animal, plants also, insects also. According to Mahavir, violence is of 3 kinds: physical, Violence like killing, causing injury or pain, violence in words or harsh language, and mental violence like ill will towards others. So this is the three way Mahavir has differentiated. We are harming the other in three manner: physically, then with the words when we speak, if it is a harsh, it also hurt, and the third is mental violence like ill will towards other when you think wrong for others. Jane believed in the sanctity of life or the right of every living being to live. So they believe to the right to live for everybody. They should live a proper and happy life, and that should be for everybody. These doctrines came to be regarded as the five vows which every Jain is supposed to take. Now, nine truth. This is also important here. Beside the five vows and other general doctrines of Jainism, Jains are expected to have the knowledge of the nine truth. According to Jain philosophy, the knowledge of these nine truths is essential, and only renunciation is the shortest way to salvation. So, renunciation on the salvation means the moksha. So, how we can come out of this kind of a desire, or how we can come out of this birth and death cycle? So, that is our salvation. So, there are nine truths. If we cover this, if we follow this nine truth, we have certain assurance to get the salvation. These nine truths have a central place in the philosophy of Jainism. The nine truths are jiva, that is your living things; ajiv, non-living things. So that means we are covering here living and non-living things both. Then punya, result of good deeds. If you do good act, the result is good. So pap, the sin, that is what wrong acts. Then ashrava, that is the good deeds again. Sanvar, hindrance in the way of karma. So when there are certain obstruction or certain problem when you do your activity, that is what hindrance. Then bandha, that is your bondage. Bondage when you are bound to do for certain thing when you want to do, but since you are bound, where you are restricted by somebody, you cannot do. Then nirjara, destruction of karmas, and moksha. So these are the nine truths that a human being follow. Now coming to the doctrines of Jainism, this is important here. Three Ratna. This is under the syllabus. You have to go through this. Three Ratnas. Mahavir preached that the ultimate goal of a man is to attain freedom from worldly balls to attain moksha. So according to Three Ratna, Mahavir said we can get moksha. When we can get the moksha, when we can be free from other kind of a worldly life. So it can be obtained by following three ratna or three jewels. So what are that three ratna? That is, first one is your right faith. Right faith means what you believe, right belief. Then right knowledge, you should have a correct knowledge what you are doing. And right conduct, when you will have the correct knowledge, of course you will do the right thing. So this is what a right conduct. These three jewels inspire a true Jain to have faith in 24 Tirthankaras, those who guide men and women across the river of existence to acquire knowledge from their sermons and to lead a good life. So this is three ratna, very important in order to get the salvation. Then second is your karma. The Jain believe in the karma theory of Hinduism that one should be responsible for one's own karma or action. So right from the very beginning, the children are taught that we should have a good deed. Good deed is called karma. If you do the correct things, you will obviously you will get the good reward. So Jain were inspired by the Hinduism. In the Ved also we have the belief of karma. So this is good deeds along liberate a man from the cycle of life and death. Now equality. Mahavir laid stress on equality between men and men, as well as between the men and women. He preached universal brotherhood. So this is what, no gender bias. He believed in the soul, whether the male or the female. He considered all men equal irrespective of the caste or creed. So there was nothing bias with the economic, whether they are wealthy or the poor. So there was nothing there. Mahavira believed that the virtuous deed could achieve ultimate salvation or nirvana. Virtuous deed means a good deed can obviously get the nirvana. All living beings, from the tiny insect to the highest form of life, should be shown compassion. So we should have, from not only to the insect and to the human, the soul, everywhere we need to give the same kind of a justice or the thing for them. If the insect is there, so we should also think for the same way as we think for the human soul. Now eternal. So Mahavira believed in the immortality of the soul, Atma. He said that body dies but not the soul. So according to Mahavir, the way of thinking that the body is just get destroyed, but the soul always remain the atma always remain. So the body changes but not the soul always remain. The next is your salvation. Like the Hindu, Jains believed in moksha, that is your salvation or freedom from the cycle of birth and rebirth. This can be achieved only by leading an austral life based on the non-violence and self-denial. To attain salvation, it is necessary to practice the Three Ratna or the right faith, right knowledge, and right action. So, salvation, this moksha, we can get by leading the Three Ratna, that is your right faith, right knowledge, and right action. The next point is your belief in penance. Penance is a hardship, how much pain we can give to ourselves. Jain believed in the penance to die of starvation called Santhara or Salkhana was considered a virtue. Jainism lays so much stress on severe penance that the very few people could lead such an austral life. This explains why Jainism had few followers. Here it means, first of all, Jainism had few followers because all the people did not have the capacity to follow such hardship which the Jain has described that you have to follow. So this is what given here. Penance means a very hardship, complete avoiding the materialistic life and to live very simple life, very restricted life, not to harm even the insect. So it was very difficult for all the people to follow in that much and to keep person in a penance. That means to keep oneself, not a person, means oneself. How much like if it's a cold weather, you cannot use this and to give a comfort for yourself. How much you can bear that cold weather, how much you can bear that hot weather. So this is what given here, that much the penance, how much you can give your attention for those things. So this is what given here, the penance. So this is the what regarding the doctrine I have taught. Next I will cover in the next video about the Buddhism. So go through this chapter and please go with the syllabus and read it and make and please make the notes. Thank you.